Welcome to the Dr. Mudgil podcast. This is episode 154. We are on our last day of October. It is Halloween today, so happy Halloween, although you're going to see this after Halloween. It is literally like 82 degrees outside. Summer just keeps on giving gifts to us. It's been unseasonably warm like all month, and I ain't complaining. I'm loving it. But it is a little strange. But I'll take it. My kids are going to have some fun in this nice weather. It's kind of sad. They're actually getting older, so it's like, they don't wear costumes or really like trick or treat. They're teenagers, but I think my little guy's still actually going to go trick or treating, but on his bike today. So hopefully he'll come back with a nice little bounty of candy. And then they're older now, so they go to like Halloween parties. It's a different stage of life, but they will have some nice weather to enjoy. It also happens to be Diwali today, which is like the most auspicious of Indian holidays. It represents the beginning of the Hindu New Year. So for all who celebrate Diwali, happy Diwali. But by the time you see this, I hope you had a happy Diwali and wish you a wonderful year ahead. Let's get right into the podcast. So I actually went to vote today. Early voting has opened up here in New York, but the line was like very, very, very long. It was almost like wrapping around. It was at a local public library, and the line was like wrapping around the building. So I said, you know what, I'm going to try to go back later, and hopefully the line is shorter. But the point is I'm going to vote, and it's very important for us all to vote. It's been a wild election season. I'm sure you've all have been riding the roller coaster along with me. It's just been, nuts. It's literally been nuts since the primaries and the debates and all that sort of stuff. It's been, amazingly entertaining, a little bit terrifying, all of the above. But the point is, what makes the United States the greatest country in the world, the best place to be, is that we get to vote. And it is firmly my belief that if you do not exercise your right to vote, then you essentially relinquish your right to complain for the next 4 years. We all have this amazing ability to contribute to our government by exercising our right to vote, and it is a foolish thing to not take that responsibility seriously. Now, I get it. Okay, I understand the dynamics and the complexities of voting. Obviously, if you love one of the candidates, then obviously you're going to vote for that individual. But for a lot of folks out there, they, maybe like a little bit about each of the candidates, and they dislike a little bit or a lot of bit about each of the candidates. Or they may just say, hey, you know what, I don't like either of these candidates. And they'll say, they will, in protest, not vote at all, which is an absolutely foolish thing to do. And you should not do that, because no matter what, one of these two people are going to be our president for the next 4 years. And certainly there are things that you hold close to your heart that are important values, personal values or society values that you have, that you hold very, very dearly and, have deep beliefs about. And, regardless of whether or not you like the individual, the policies of one of these individuals most likely aligns better with your personal philosophies than the other individual. And it might be a little bit of a mix and match. You might like a little bit of the policies of one candidate and maybe a little bit of the other candidate. And then you kind of have to do a deep dive and make a pro and cons list and figure out, which person is more aligned with your values and things that are important to you and to your family and to your friends and to your society. But most certainly, you have an opinion about many, many things. For instance, if you have an opinion about inflation, you most certainly need to vote. If you have an opinion about taxes, you most certainly need to vote. If you have an opinion about national security, you got to vote. If you have an opinion about foreign relations, you have to vote. If you have an opinion about the integrity of our border, you got to vote. If you have an opinion about women's reproductive rights, you got to vote. If you have an opinion about transgender athlete participation in sports, you got to vote. there's a lot of things that are on the table, and I'm sure, all of the things I've mentioned, maybe you don't have an opinion on all of those things, but certainly some of those things are important to you. If you feel like you're better off now than you were 4 years ago, you got to vote. If you feel like you were better off 4 years ago than you are now, you got to vote. So basically, any way you spin it, you got to vote. You got to get out there and vote. It does matter. Even if you're in a red state or a blue state and you think your vote doesn't count, it counts. It counts. You got to count your vote. You got to vote in the federal election. But more importantly, if you're in a distinctly red or distinctly blue state, you got to vote for your local officials. If you feel like your community is safer now than it was 4 years ago, your community, local politicians are the ones who are making the impact there. If you feel like it's less safe than it was 4 years ago, it's your local elected officials that make a big impact there as well. So no matter what, you got to get out there and vote. So hopefully this puts a little bit of a fire under your arse, and you're going to get out there. You're going to exercise the amazing right we have as Americans to vote in our elections. It's a privilege and it's a responsibility. So with that, I hope you all have a wonderful, restful weekend and are just ready to crush the week ahead. Get out there on Tuesday and vote. Let's get it.